Welcome to Conversate, a podcast where we engage in conversation. And on today's episode, I, Kevin, am sitting down with Lauren Stigers, a master of the fish. Lauren is been part of our congregation for a number of years, but brings a very unique and educated voice to the table when it comes to, well, all things fish. And did you know that fish is a considerable part of the scriptural narrative? Well, maybe not. In this conversation, you're going to learn a lot more about fish than you probably knew. And you'll also see how it comes to play in the scriptural story and what it means for us in terms of being creatures alongside these fish creatures in our world today. As always, we hope you enjoy the conversation and that you find some piece of it to take and start another faith-filled conversation with somebody else. And as always, we hope you enjoy it.
Cheers.
Hey, cheers.
Yeah. Do you know where cheers came from?
Was it that show back in the 70s?
No. This is actually like really, really old.
Okay.
And why people cheers.
No, tell me.
So apparently you would cheers and do it robust enough that your liquid would flow into the other cup. Uh-huh. And it's a sign of that you didn't poison each other.
What?
So it's a trusting initiation in a way.
That is very interesting. So I'm thinking like, I'm imagining delegates of kingdoms doing this with each other.
Yes. And you would always want to slosh it into each other's cups.
Is cheers, is that like our English translation of a different word that they yelled at each other when they robustly mashed their
most likely
containers? Okay.
I know in different languages it's always different things. So cheers or 1, 2, 3, go or...
Yeah. Actually, have you ever heard salud?
I feel like I have.
Yeah. Well, that one... It sort of has the same connotation. In church, sometimes there's a prayer where we say, it is good, right, and salutary, that we should at all times and at all places give thanks to you. Salutary comes from salud, and it just means health. So like to good health.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like sometimes a common, And so it's like, hey, kingdom that we are now doing business with or something. To good health because I did not poison your beverage.
Yes.
That's weird, though, that if yours is sloshing into theirs...
Theirs is going to slosh back.
Oh, but like one kingdom's hosting. This is different because you and I have brought different beverages to the table today.
Yeah,
but
and
like,
we trust each other without doing that.
Yeah, but in the ancient world, they didn't bring their coffee mug.
No, it was mostly... alcohol and beer.
And it was provided by one kingdom.
Yes.
I was trying to figure out, I was like, why would mine be poisoned? Well, if I wasn't the host, right?
Yeah.
Good thing I'm the host. And welcome to Conversate. I have with me today, if you haven't recognized the voice yet, I have with me the voice of, and the rest of the person of Lauren Stigers. And Lauren has been, well, good golly gosh. I got to ask a question right now, which is, when it comes to membership at St. Peter and Paul, well, membership aside, let's go with, you've been attending here at St. Peter and Paul for...
I think 3 years now.
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Yeah.
So, why don't, instead of me stumbling over an introduction for you, Lauren, why don't you just share with me and our listeners how you got connected to St. Peter and Paul, maybe to this area in general, and then what it is that you're up to in life.
Yeah, sure. So actually I'm going to go a step probably farther back. And so I was raised in Pennsylvania being Catholic, and so going to church every Sunday was the thing, and very religious growing up. And then I went to college in both undergrad and grad school, and I kind of seemed to lost my way, but it was because I didn't have that church community, or I would be shopping for churches in a way, right? And none of them really felt very good or what I believed. And so I went through grad school, tried to find a job, got my PhD in fisheries, which will be a little insight there to what we're going to talk about. But the job brought me to this area about 6 years ago. And so met Adam, my now husband. And we were like, you know what? We really want to get back into the church scene. We were invited by Karen and Matt Heath, and they were like, we go to St. Peter's and Paul's. Would you want to join us? And so we ended up coming, and we haven't stopped. So
Yeah.
kind of been coming ever since. And, you know, it really resonates. The community is amazing. And things that, you know, switching even just from Catholicism to Lutheran, it feels more right, and things I don't have as many questions about things or testing it, and so this fits a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like a whole world I would be curious to explore, but maybe not where we're headed today.
Yeah.
Now, where did you do your undergrad and grad school?
Yeah, so I went to undergrad at Mansfield University in Pennsylvania, a small state school, in fisheries biology. I did an internship in West Virginia on recirculating aquaculture, and so fish farming, a little introduction to fish farming. And then my grad school, because of that interest, I went to grad school at Auburn University in Alabama, where I got my master's and PhD in aquaculture.
What a cool word. Aquaculture. What does aquaculture mean?
So it's really the human intervention in the process of raising fish, holding fish, growing fish. And so have you ever had a pet fish before?
So my mother has a pet fish actively, and once I did receive a goldfish at a fair for making the ball in the cup.
There you go. Yeah. So holding on to a fish in an aquarium, you're actually you're actively doing aquaculture. You're raising and caring for a fish. And so there's different purposes for that product, I would say, as a business side of things. And so you could raise fish for pets, you could raise fish for food, or you could raise fish for stocking, which we hear a lot of the times in Michigan in terms of like what the Department of Natural Resources does in terms of relaying fish back into the wild.
Well, thank you for that definition. Yeah. Here I was thinking that, like, you know, certain fish like to celebrate different festivals, you know, and that was part of their aquaculture. And then there's, you know, different aquacultures. I'm anthropomorphizing the fish.
It's okay.
Yeah. So Lauren alluded to something that we're going to get into here, which was, well, one of the reasons we thought to ask Lauren come and be on this podcast was we've been going through the days of creation here at the church at St. Peter and Paul in this Advent season, and day 5, which I actually did not preach about this past Sunday. A lot of times that's what we're referencing is whatever I preached about. I skipped over it to talk about humans in our culture, but day 5 we'll touch on when this episode releases tonight at our Advent worship. But day 5 is the day where the fishies come to be. And fish, okay, we got to go back a little bit on you, because so fish is a big part of Lauren Stigers' life. But when did fish for you emerge as this thing that was very interesting?
Yeah. So I've been fishing since I was about 3 years old. My dad would take me fishing. And so growing up, it was always this thing that I would do with my dad, and loved it, loved everything about fish, loved the peacefulness of being outside. And then I always loved learning. And so learning new things, there's always something to learn about fish. And as evidence as preparing for this podcast, I'm still learning things about fish. So it's really exciting. And so I told my parents in high school that I was going to go to school for fisheries, and they didn't believe me. And I said, watch me. And here we are.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a long-standing piece in your life, but I imagine many of our hearers will probably resonate. Obviously we live in an area where fishing is a big part of our human culture.
Yeah. And so right now, my current job, these last 6 years, what really brought me back I'm originally from here. No, not at all. But what brought me to the Western UP has been my job as an extension educator with Michigan State University and the Michigan Sea Grant program. And so 100% of my job is to go out and educate people about fish.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of education? So, educate people about fish.
Yeah.
What kinds of things should people know about fish?
That is the top broadest viewpoint of what I do, but it's the easiest way to communicate what I do.
Yeah.
But I really work a lot with the commercial fishermen in Michigan, as well as the aquaculturists or fish farmers, and actually a lot more recently consumers, since consumer education about, we don't really eat a lot of fish in our diets. And so how can we incorporate that more? What is it about fish that you don't eat like? Or is it the way you're preparing it? Do you not know how to cook fish? Let's look into that. And so I do a lot of food safety and just random knowledge pieces like we started this podcast with.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize there was that sounds like kind of a nutritional component in some sense. Because we're not my understanding or my thought would be, as a society, as Americans, we don't consume as much fish as maybe some other cultures.
Yeah, like the Mediterranean. Yeah.
Yeah, but fish are maybe some of the best things?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it, but I do know something about blue zones, right? Which are these areas of the world where human longevity have sort of been identified, and then they say, well, why is this the case? And then they look at different components, and diet or nutrition is one of them. And the Mediterranean, I believe, is one of those blue zones.
Yeah, you think of the Mediterranean diet, and so I feel like that's, it's very fish conscious, and because fish is really nutritionally balanced for you, you get your omega-3s and 6s, and of course, it actually has the highest amount of protein that you will recover in your body compared to any of the other protein sources.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. And I did not grow up liking fish or eating fish.
Me neither.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you like fish now, though?
I do.
Yeah, me too. It's so good. I love it here. In fact, so my in-laws live over in Munising, and they live on a little lake. And that's been my biggest introduction to eating fish, because they'll just catch right in their backyard, basically. And, what do you skin it? I was going to call it skin it. That's not right.
Fillet.
Fillet is the term. And, cook that bad boy up, and it's delicious, and it's so good, and you feel good after eating it.
Yes.
So, day 5.
Yes.
God creates all the little fishies, which I think Aaron made the comment at some point about the first 3 days are these forming days. So day 1 is light. Day 2 is the expanse, so the waters are separated. Day 3 is the emergence of the land, and so then days 4, 5, and 6 correspond to that. Day 4 is the sun and the moon and the stars, which we would think, well, yeah, light, that's what those things are for, and so they connect. So 1 and 4 go together. And then day 2 and 5 go together. So we've got the waters and the skies, and if you read day 5 in the Genesis account, you'll read about the skies and the waters. You'll read about the birds being created and the swarms of the fishies. Oh. And my card's on the table. I did little to no thought in advance of this podcast, but my friend Lauren,
I did all of it for you.
she's rocking it. So I'm curious. Yeah. I'm going to be as open-ended as possible, because I don't know maybe this would be the best open-ended way to lead you in, is basically in your thinking about day 5 creation, your own vocation. Where did that lead you in your thought journey in preparation for today?
Yeah, so Lauren, as a citizen, right, is not in my professional role or anything. So I'm looking at my professional role and what I know, but then also my personal life, right? And so how me looking into this, well, I took a very analytical approach first, and then just threw everything together. But did you know that the term fish or fishes or fishers is really mentioned in 70 verses throughout the Bible?
Verses. No, I would not have known that.
Yeah, so it is very prevalent throughout the Bible, which is really exciting, and I get excited every time it's mentioned.
By the way, this is side note information. If you want to know the extent of Lauren's fish love, look at her ring finger on her left hand. We'll give you a clue. Look at her cell phone case. We'll also give you a clue. Fish is a big part of Lauren's life.
Yes.
But here you're coming to find that it's also an important piece in the scriptures.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, there's creation of fish, but even, in day 6, God gives dominion over people for the fish, right? And so the caretakers of fish, which we still continue today. And so really looking at all those different scriptures and maybe using a little bit of AI to create a reading plan for me about fish, which it totally did a 7-day reading plan, and I'm working on that. It's really great, but the takeaway of it is that fish really aren't just mentioned as food. It's also mentioned as symbols of God's provision. human stewardship, and calling of discipleship.
Yeah.
So even, after Genesis, fish really brought forward the first disciples because they were fishermen. And so fish is throughout the Bible in Old and New Testament.
Yeah. Now, which of those three, as you think of those three tracks, so provision, stewardship, discipleship, you might say, for the third one. Was there one of those three that for you was especially meaningful? Or was there kind of components of each one that you were curious to learn?
So all three. I would say all three. And so provision is something that, why I got into aquaculture as well. We only have so many fish in our wild food system. So we can only catch so much, but the human population continues to grow. So how do we continue feeding people? Well, that is through aquaculture and farming. And so that's why I got into aquaculture. And so provisioning is huge, and giving and being able to have that resource. But then human stewardship is really a lot of what I work in now in terms of the management, intentional management of fisheries, and who has access or is allocated that, and what kind of science we can provide to go into that. And then the discipleship, I'd say, is the last 2 weeks of my life, especially with the discipleship training, and just how do you go about this and talking really about God and bringing really my personal and professional life together, this is the very first time I'm doing that. So it's pretty exciting and new. And so I'm thinking a lot about that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of lay this out on the table, because I think it's something that not all of us, I'd be curious, even listeners, to know if this is something that you've encountered. But I know in my own personal experience, we do live at a time where there's an awareness to let's say limiting factors, let's say, right? So I see documentaries, with David Attenborough, on Netflix, that are talking about, just looking at our world, and from different areas, whether it's human population, whether it has to do with, environmental, which I guess this would fall into issues. But that's a broad category, so you get greenhouse gases, however you land or fall on that. But also when it comes to animal populations and, overhunting and things like that. So anyways, we live in a precarious world. I'll put it that way. There's concerns about what might happen to our planet if certain habit patterns just continue the way that they are, right? Now, in that world, this is my experience of those documentaries, it's often cast in a kind of doomsday-ish framework, which is basically, look, we need to save the world, right? The world is going to implode. If we don't make these changes, we need to save the world, which is pretty strong and powerful, Now, I've been around certain circles that basically want to suggest that none of those things that they're talking about are important at all, and none of those things are actually going to happen. And these are all just, people who are barking up trees that we shouldn't bark up. And, come on, can't we just be happy? Something like that. But the interesting thing in the scriptures is that we get a picture that really isn't either of those categories. It's not negligence to the world, the created world. It doesn't say, kind of turn a blind eye to these realities and everything's just going to be totally fine. Nor is it the idea that we are somehow the saviors of the world, right?
Yeah.
That's a little bit, if we were the saviors of the world, we'd be taking Jesus out of his role, right? Mm-hmm. However, we are made in the image of God. And this comes through strong in the Genesis 1 account. So God himself, he's kind of imagined as a gardener at the beginning.
Yeah.
He's got a green thumb, and he's causing all this life to exist. But then he says, hey, humans, you're made in my image. I want you to care for this planet, this world. I want you to care for these animals. And so it strikes me as that's where this part of our faith really lands kind of square into your world, because especially the provision and stewardship piece is, it sounds like that's a lot of what your work is concerning itself with. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and that, just the call of, okay, we are we are called as people and from God to be overseers of His creation, and so it's really interesting. And maybe a question back to you, right? God says the greatest commandment is to love God and then to love your neighbors. Would you consider other creations also your neighbors?
Oh, so great question. So at the seminary, we went through this exercise that I think drew out what you're drawing out of me right now, which is in this class, we had a list of things, words scattered on a page. And the assignment was, all right, you need to group these words together. So put some on the left side, some on the right side. And they were words like trees, angels, frogs, humans, God, himself. So words like that, right? And then they said categorize them. And so we categorized them. And the class was pretty much unanimous in this. On the one side, we had, God, angels, maybe the Holy Spirit, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, we had trees and frogs and, humans. And then the professor said, oh, no, you've gotten it wrong. Instead, he said, God is the only one in this category on the left-hand side, and anything created, so not the spirit's also God, but the angels, I suppose even the demons to some degree, but also the trees and the frogs and the humans were all creatures.
Yeah.
And that creature word isn't a derogatory word.
No.
It's just a designation of our status before God. So when it comes to that commandment of like love God and love your neighbor, I think in that specific verse, the neighbor that Jesus has in mind is likely our human neighbors. Mm-hmm. I think that term neighbor typically is denoted that way. However, in the scriptures, and this I think is what you were talking about, even in the Old Testament, like when it comes to fish, there is this idea that we are akin to the other creatures. So that is to say, these other creatures, whether they're trees or frogs or fish, they also point us back to God.
Because they're created, and so we should still love them.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they're creatures just like us.
Yes.
Would be one way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell me why does that question have significance for you?
And I guess it's going, the extremes, right, of love versus like maybe mindlessness or exploitation, right? Or just being wasteful.
Yeah.
And so when, you have a fish, if it's meant for food, using it for food, and maybe here comes some of my experience. But one thing, okay, here, let's throw this out here as a great example. Shark fins.
Yeah.
And so they, in certain cultures, are overexploited because it is a lot cheaper to catch shark fins, keep the fins part, and throw the rest of the shark back in the water.
Interesting.
And the reason for that is they actually take shark plugs of the fins, and so they will resell it as scallops because they taste and are textured the same, but they don't cost as much to harvest and to put together. And so actually, so if you want to know if you're eating scallops or shark fin plugs, you would look at the lines in the tissue. And so scallops grow vertically, so they'll have vertical plugs. But if you take a plug of a shark fin, it's growing out, and so it would be horizontal plugs. And so that's how you know what you're actually eating. But so in those cultures, they would take those shark fins, and then the rest of the shark, that's very wasteful. And so you're not really respecting all of what is a shark. Oh. And so are you really loving it and providing it a purpose for what it's there for? Mm-hmm. Or are you just kind of being greedy, mm-hmm. right, and kind of going that way?
Yeah, so like in the case of these sharks, I remember fins showing up in one of the documentaries that I watched, but are the sharks still living after these fins are removed? Okay, so this is what you mean by the wastefulness.
Yes.
You've got a whole being here. And I think actually a lot of our listeners would probably resonate just thinking about, like, say, deer hunting.
Yes.
Like when you go deer hunting, the idea isn't, I'm just going to like take one little thing and kind of throw the rest out because who cares?
Yeah.
There's a sort of I don't know what to call it. I'm not much of a deer hunter myself. I've gone. I just haven't seen any deer yet. Looking forward to the day. But it seems like part of the culture of that world, which was insightful to me, was that there's a lot of consideration about how to basically be respectful to that which you're hunting, you know? So like that includes not being wasteful or not being, I think there's certain ways to take down a deer that could be more or less harmful to the deer in terms of its experience, you know, like whether it's kind of a quick kill. So like if you have a good shot versus one that it might run away wounded and maybe you never catch it and now it's suffering. Yeah, so we've got these kind of considerations of how do we respect these creatures, and that's what you're kind of bringing to the table when you're thinking of them in the view of all creation, is that, yeah, they're not just material objects to be utilized however we want for our desires.
Yes.
But there's, and this is what stewardship is all about. There's sort of a weight of responsibility to, there's still a utility to creation. And we see this even in the New Testament. Like some people make the case about being vegetarians. And in the scriptures, like in the garden, that's actually the sense that is there. Like they eat the vegetation only. But in the New Testament, Peter gets a vision and all the animals are on a blanket and it's kind of weird and mysterious. But it's God saying that, so there were certain animals the Jews would not eat, and God was saying, no, you can eat these. Like that's okay. So we know that consuming meat is part of what's acceptable, you know, in God's scheme of creation. But there's still a spirit behind it is maybe the best way I could think about it in talking about stewardship.
Yeah, because in the end, if everybody comes forward with their own values, right, of how to use the fish or what the purpose of those fish are, and that's the space I work a lot in my professional role is, okay, so who's right or who should have access to that fish, or shouldn't it be shared, or what does that sharing look like and allocated as. And it's really funny, and I still have to spend time digging into this, but the whole concept of public trust and the public trust doctrine, which is like the law of shared commodities, or that the state kind of oversees certain natural resources, and where that actually stems from. I'm digging into it a little bit. Don't know, but it sounds a lot like kind of what God tells us to kind of move forward.
Well, you're making me think a little bit of in the New Testament when the church is just forming, so it's in its infancy stage after Jesus' ascension. One dynamic, of that early church, and this is, again, it's not like it's a command of God, but it's curious, and I think it's insightful to this conversation, is that community of Christians, no one was in need. So there was a mutual sharing of what people had, so that there wasn't folks who were in desperate need, right? Because you can imagine, or I can imagine, I think folks can, right, about like when it comes to the shark fin piece. If you've got a people that's incredibly in need and they're just kind of like scraping to survive, you can start to see how justifications can be made in, I think, the creature world, where it's like, well, look, we're on top, all right? I know we're supposed to take care of them, but my family's starving, so I need to do this, right? And you can understand that justification, but there's a bigger picture, I imagine, to this world, right? I mean, I know there is in our culture and context where it's not as simple as, it seems like this trust. What was the name of the doctrine?
Public trust. Public
trust. Part of what it's trying to fight against, it sounds like, is everyone basically just hoarding for oneself.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So in the early Christian community, you see that basically lived out by the mutual sharing of the brothers and sisters. And that was a reflection of, I think, going back really to creation, if you will, the stewardship of our lives and our things, that it's all in God. There's a trust that He's going to take care of us. But that doesn't mean we're thoughtless about how that looks.
Yeah.
There's still a thoughtfulness and a participation in the caring for. But part of it's those difficult decisions of like, okay, well then what's enough? Or what sort of metrics? You know, how do we measure this? And that sounds like is part of the challenge of your vocation when you talk about different voices coming to the table.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Would it be easy to summarize like what some of those voices are? Maybe that's overly complicated.
Yeah, no, I think it is very overly complicated, but let's just look at maybe Lake Superior since we're right here.
Yeah.
And so working with commercial fishermen, right, I kind of see how they harvest fish for food, right, but it's a business. We have charter fishermen who go out and take people fishing for fun, but then also it provides them food when they come back. We have tribal nations, multiple tribal nations who are sovereign, are basically thinking of them as additional countries within the U.S., right? And that what they want with their fishermen and their treaties that they have. And then Canada, we also have to
share.
Yeah. And so
our friends to the north.
All these groups kind of coming together and and recreational fishermen, right? So just the people who want to go out and be able to catch their own fish, whether that's just for a fun hobby or to bring it home for as food, like that's what they rely on subsistently. So, bringing all these people together and everybody wants to say these are my fish. At least there's an agreement in place that we're here to make sure that fish are sustainable. But once you get past that, each of those institutions, they need to allocate the fisheries. And so they have to give it to their stakeholders and say, you get so much or you get so much. And so how do you divide that and what does that look like? And that's really where the crux of a lot of arguments happen because people feel very strongly and passionate about these values of fish. And, right now, a big conversation has been like lake whitefish has been declining, which is mostly the commercial catch. And so what happens if lake whitefish disappear? What happens to our commercial fisheries? Should they have access to other fish? And so this ongoing conversation with how the ecosystem currently is kind of what's playing out and where I help bring education forward in my professional role.
So do you have a seat at those tables, like where those dialogues are happening?
No, okay. But I help. I host like workshops, or I'm used as a resource to help facilitate conversations, or at least with different groups if they ask for that help.
Yeah. So you're kind of like I wanted to think of a sweet water analogy, but I couldn't. I should have studied puns at least. But what's an inlet? What's an inlet, Lauren?
An inlet?
Yeah, do you know what an inlet is?
Like a water inlet? Is that what you're saying?
That's all I'm trying to think of is you can be. I'll abandon my watery attempts. No, you can serve as a gateway for maybe a broader populace to enter into those conversations. It sounds like with your education.
More like a canal.
Yeah.
So I'm connecting different groups that might historically be separated.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds difficult.
Yeah.
Although I think it's a good thing. It sounds like the way in which those lines get drawn and maybe redrawn, it sounds like it happens through conversation. I mean, that's maybe an oversimplification, but I don't hear you saying, yeah, we show up and there's, guns, but maybe there are behind the words. I don't know.
There has been in the past.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are very protective over their fish, which they, as they claim as their fish, right? And so kind of going back to whose fish are they, especially with the faith context. But, there's a lot of history and people are very proud of their fish. Their livelihoods are tied to their fish. And so I think relationships and trust needs to be rebuilt, and that happens through conversations. And so it's like, how do you have those conversations though when there's no trust?
Sure.
And so that's kind of where we're focusing on right now in terms of our work moving forward. It's okay, so let's sit here and something I have really thought a lot about, bringing my personal and professional life a little bit together, especially and actually after JFJ, you're joyfully following Jesus, is that, making sure everybody feels loved and valued. And so now with that thought, how can I move forward in having communication with these groups and facilitating in ways that maybe it's not just the scientific research, but also in ways that they can have conversations where they feel valued, where they feel loved for what they do, and that they feel important and feel heard. And I feel like these groups, I would like them to have that, even if it's just with me, nobody else. Like, that's what I want to be able to provide moving forward. And so that's kind of what I'm aiming towards as, I guess, a goal for this coming year.
I love that goal. I was just about to ask you, like, what do you think Christianity has to offer to this world? But I think you've maybe just articulated it.
Yeah.
Like, has this been is this something that has been maybe a part of your being and what you've been integrating in yourself, like when it comes to your work, or has this been a more recent?
Very recent.
Okay.
Actually, very recent. And so, before that, I always thought, well, there's plenty of fish. Like, let's just all share, right? And always had that mentality of sharing. But now it's kind of like, okay, well, you can all share, but there's things that we can't control. And so just still processing and being there as a human being and being, caring for that other person. I think that is really, I found that very rewarding for the last 13 weeks. So can I share this with others that I'm working with too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, this is my hope anyway, is that kind of a treatment and honoring of another creature, human creature in this case, actually leads, let's say, the working out of this complex problem in a way that can be done just with words, and not guns, or violence or things like that. And of course, that would be consistent with our faith. Yes. Well, we've kind of moved into this. So you did talk provision, stewardship. Now where I feel like we're in that final category of fish, as a discipleship. And you just articulated so well a strength that Christianity brings to the table in your vocation and likely others. I mean, that principle is not unique to fisheries. Of honoring other people as we move through complex problems. But is there anything else on that third category for you that's been new or insightful or interesting?
I'm still exploring it.
Exploring
it. Yeah, very new to me. So.
Are you familiar with the ichthys?
Yes, actually, that's one of my points in my reviews of things, and how ichthys is really just shorthand, but it means Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior.
That's right.
Right, and so it's an acronym, but it's also ichthys, which is fish in Greek or Latin?
Greek.
Yes. Thank you. And the symbol of the fish, right, is old sign for fish. And I actually have a bracelet on with it right now. But it's funny because Pastor Aaron preached on this once and in a sermon, and he's like, "Did you know about that?" And I was like, "I actually do, because the ichthyology is what I went for in grad school. It's the study of fish." So
no kidding.
Ichthyology from Latin,
cool.
and so ichthys and fish, and just so cool.
That is so cool. Yeah. So okay, I'm going to slow it down.
Sorry,
just so you can catch on. Ichthys. So like English letters, the transliteration would be ICTHUS. Those each stand for a word, which I forget. What do we call that? What do we call NASA or scuba?
Acronym?
Acronym, yes, exactly. So ichthys is the word fish in Greek, but it is an acronym used by the early church as a way to describe the identity of Jesus. Yes. So to make a claim about who he was. And this is kind of legend. I don't know it's ever been substantiated, but apparently, potentially, in the ancient world, in the early centuries of Christianity, when it was a very dangerous thing to be a Christian, one way in which you would kind of, if you had a sense about someone, you thought, "Mom, I wonder if they're also a follower like me," you would, perhaps be on a beach somewhere, and you would with your toe, or finger in the sand, you would carve like half of a fish. So you'd maybe do like part of the back of the fin and start shaping the body and then just leave it. And if the other person was a Christian, they would kind of know the code and they'd come over and they'd finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the fish, it's not only a theme in the scriptures, but it sort of carries forward as a symbol. Yep. Maybe not, clearly not as like prominent as the cross.
Yeah.
But not lagging too far in behind.
No.
When you think of objects in the church, cross, bread, wine, but fish is not far behind.
No, fish is, and nobody really talks about fish. So it makes me really happy to sit here and talk about fish and bring awareness about the fish.
Well, Lauren, I'm thankful that you brought all of this ichthyology to the table this morning.
Yes.
And for our listeners, such a treasure to have you and
Thank
Adam
you.
as a part of our congregation, this family. And thank you for the work that you're doing to help us as humanity, as Adam, be good stewards of this creation God's gifted us with.
Yeah, I can try.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your efforts. Somewhere in the scriptures it says our efforts are not in vain, as we seek to do God's will. So thanks again, Lauren, for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
Blessings on all your fish adventures.
Yeah, appreciate it.